Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Sam Priestley, and I'm here with my co-host, Emma Priestley. Say hello.
Hello.
We've both got back from holiday quite recently, and we're both a bit coldy, so if this sounds a bit sniffly, then I apologise.
Speak for yourself, Sam. I feel fine at the moment.
Good, I don't. Today is going to be what will probably be a slightly shorter episode, and Emma doesn't actually know what we're talking about today. And it's something I don't think I've really spoken to with her about before, so hopefully she'll find it just as interesting as you do.
Oh, you're dropping me in the deep end here, are you?
I am. What we're talking about today is competing at a different angle. I'm trying to think up a better name for this, but I can't really, because it's kind of a concept I've made up and developed for a bit of trial and error. But I think it's quite important to the way I think about business now and the way I think about competing, especially in markets that everyone says is too saturated. The problem is, it's very difficult to compete in any industry. If the industry is already established, then you've got people who've made it work, they've got a lot of money, they've got a lot of experience. But if it's an industry that you're creating for yourself, then you're going to really struggle to get any customers, because you've got to educate the customers as to why they want your product or whatever it is you're selling. It is true for pretty much everything. Think about, say, artisan coffee. The person who first started an artisan coffee shop had to convince people that they wanted to pay a bit extra for artisan coffee versus just going to your Italian roasters or down to your Starbucks or whatever. But now if you start an artisan coffee shop, there's already an audience who want your product, but you've got to compete with all those other coffee shops who've done really well, they've got all the expertise, there's coffee shops everywhere now. A lot of them have got a lot of big money behind them. So neither one of them is really easy. So my solution is to already enter a established field where there's already a target market already built, and then compete at a slightly different angle to everyone else, an angle that I'm the best at, or where there's very little other competition. Basically being the best in your field, which isn't easy when you're entering a field that you kind of know not that much about. I think my favourite example of this is the release of the Wii in 2006. The Wii is a game console released by Nintendo, and at the time there was a real sort of arms race in the technology behind games console releases. The period before, we saw the release of the GameCube, the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, of which the GameCube was quite significantly worse in terms of technology and graphics and performance than the other two, and as a result didn't sell as well as the other two. That was in 2001, and by 2006 that sort of technology gap had really widened, and the new consoles were going to be released, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 by Sony and Microsoft, there was no way really Nintendo could compete and produce something that had a good performance and as high graphics. So Nintendo decided to compete at a slightly different angle. They, instead of targeting the sort of hardcore gamers, they targeted a more casual market where graphics and performance wasn't perhaps so important, and they added in their kind of motion sensor stuff, made it a bit more family friendly as opposed to sort of gamers sitting with their mates or alone in their bedroom. And as a result, they ended up outselling the other two by a long way and became one of the sort of best-selling consoles of all time, even though on paper the Wii was a lot worse than the others. I first sort of came across this concept by making a few mistakes, and that was when I started my coffee shop. The idea was to start an artisan coffee shop in the City of London, and originally we just wanted to do just another artisan coffee shop, but we quickly, after launching, worked out that we were going to really struggle to compete with the other shops out there. There was places like Taylor Street baristas who were just going to blast us out the water on every sort of traditional point. They had a lot more money to invest. They had already a developed reputation, and they were just more skilled at us. They had the experience. Taylor Street baristas, in fact, have a 6-month training program that they put every barista through before they're allowed to serve any coffee to a customer.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's a reason why you want to go to there.
Yeah.
And when there's a walking distance between the Wren and Taylor Street, Which one are you going to choose if you're just going for the coffee? And as a new coffee shop, we couldn't afford to be spending 6 months to train up new staff. In fact, we didn't really have anyone qualified enough to train them up. But what we did have, or what we did realise, was that we had this huge space. We were in an old church, a 1,000-year-old building that had been redesigned by Christopher Wren, sort of Britain's greatest architect. That was kind of a tourist attraction in its own respect. We had this huge seating area with really high ceilings and a lot of space, something that the city doesn't have much of. So what we worked out is that by competing on somewhere you can go and sit for your coffee, a nice space, a little outdoor seating area, as long as our coffee was good enough, it was in the artisan category. It wasn't Taylor Street barista level, but it was much better than Starbucks or Pret or anything else. It ticked all the artisan coffee checkboxes. Then we could still attract customers by focusing on the other stuff, the stuff that we were the best at and the stuff that other people would really struggle to compete with. That was a little bit of an eye-opener, and something that I've tried to kind of implement with everything, which brings me on to one of my more recent businesses that I've been doing with Emma here, the gin. And I'm not sure, this would be interesting to talk to Emma about, because I'm not sure she entirely understood my reasonings behind doing the gin to begin with.
Yeah, well, let's see.
And why I thought it was a good idea in terms of, from a business point of view, as well as just something that'd be fun to do. I think you always understood that, like, making gin would be great fun.
Yeah, definitely. We like drinking it. So.
We like drinking it. I mean, some good ideas and stuff we want to do, and but I don't think many people thought that it had legs to be a legitimately good business. I think we were told by a lot of people, and you probably thought it yourself, that there's a lot of other gins in the market. How are we going to compete with them? Are we too late? Is the gin craze kind of at its peak already? What do we know about gin? What can we do differently? Like, a lot of people talk about our unique selling point, and we did have a unique selling point. We had our flavoured component, flavoured without the sweetness. But that is not the angle that I thought we could compete at. Flavoured without the sweetness is something I thought was a unique selling point and was good. And we had another one. We had the local aspect. So when we were selling markets and to local places, we could say that we were local to them. We were the most local gin there was, which kind of got through the door.
Well, before all that, I thought the reasoning behind the gin business, in terms of coming at it from a different angle, was that we were going to create a gin brand that really stood out online.
Yeah.
I thought that was the USP, and the flavour concept came second to that.
Yeah, that's correct. Good memory. Yeah, basically what it is that I have a lot of experience with online sales, and so does my business partner Ben, and we have together we have some successful Amazon businesses. But Amazon is quite a saturated market, and so one thing I was doing is it's quite difficult to compete on Amazon. And the whole thing, I think, with a different angle is you're looking for something that other people can't compete with you at.
Yes.
And this is something where I thought gin could come in really well. Because the hard thing about gin is all the legal requirements around selling alcohol.
Online.
And in general.
Yeah.
And in general, like getting the licenses, paying all the duty, even just working out how all the legislation works together.
Yeah.
Makes it a million times more difficult than selling like a soft toy or something on Amazon.
Or a table tennis bat.
Or a table tennis bat on Amazon, yeah. Like even a table tennis bat, we had a bit of that because it needed to be approved by the International Table Tennis Federation, which then makes it a bit harder for some random person who doesn't know anything about table tennis to come in and do it. And so the problem that a lot of people have with Amazon is that as soon as kind of a niche appears to be slightly profitable, you'll get lots of these big boys with lots of money go and create a product in that. And they'll have products ranging from fans to beauty products to bamboo sticks to toys, just encompassing like the whole range.
Yeah, and they have a lot of money to throw at it, don't they? The marketing, the designing, the branding, and Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas for them to compete in alcohol would be quite difficult because there's a whole bunch of other stuff they need to do and know about to do that. And likewise, for us to compete, we're having this problem at the moment getting into distributors.
Yeah.
So we're also with the gin trying traditional routes, and we're finding them quite difficult for all those reasons. There's a lot of other gins out there. We don't have a big background in industry. It's quite like a matey industry where everyone kind of knows everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how stuff works. And as outsiders, we're finding it quite difficult to compete with that. But all those people, it's an old school business. It's one that works on relationships. It's one that works on going round, meeting people, getting drunk with people.
Yeah, pretty much.
All that doesn't translate very well to online. So a lot of these established gym businesses are very bad at online marketing and at the online market. And so there is a gap in the market on Amazon, considering the sort of scale of sales that are going on Amazon, which, compared to the rest of the industry isn't very big, but, for people like us, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you had a look at some of the, use a tool to have a look at some of the gin brands that were already on Amazon, and there were a few big players that were doing well, but actually looking at the craft gin, there weren't a huge amount of craft gins on there, but the ones that were on there were doing quite well.
They're doing quite well by not doing very much.
Yes.
Yeah, so we thought we could compete with them quite easily.
Yeah.
And it's not to say there was no competition in this area.
Yeah.
There was, but we've eliminated 90% of the competition. So this business, we're approaching two different, very competitive industries and taking a slight angle at both that means they combine, and we end up being one of the only people in that sort of combined area. So we got gin, which is competitive. We've got Amazon FBA, which is competitive, but combined the two, we end up in this kind of niche that isn't that competitive.
Yeah.
And yes, we are doing a bunch of other things. We are selling locally. We're using a slight angle of that. We're the only local gym. We're also competing with our flavouring, flavoured gin without the sweetness. But even stuff like that is kind of because we're pushing towards this online market, and we're thinking to ourselves, what is it that someone buying gin online, what would make them buy something without trying it?
Yes.
And a lot of other gins, they rely on you tasting it to know whether you like it, because they'll be called by their brand name. There's not anything really descriptive about the flavour in the name, and often they're London Dries, which a lot of people think of as just juniper led with hints of other things going on. There's quite subtle differences. So we went a slightly different angle. We designed it to the bottle to really stand out when looking at it in a thumbnail online, and we put the name of the flavourings in the title, and they're quite interesting, unusual things. So our first one is Earl Grey and Cucumber, which you instantly be, I kind of know what that tastes like. And it's sort of thing where you can see online, and you can buy it. You can look at some of the reviews, see what people are saying about it, and then buy it off that. Whereas other gin, you don't really know. It's also good for people who don't really like gin and want to buy gin as a gift for other people.
Yeah.
Because they can be like, oh, this is something unusual that my gin-loving friend would like, as opposed to trying something they don't like anyway, or just buying a random bottle.
Yeah, that's the good thing about having a gin business, that even if you get customers who don't like the taste of gin, actually they probably have someone in their life they could buy it as a gift for. So it's got quite a broad appeal.
Indeed. Yeah, which is one of the reasons I try and tell people, don't be too afraid about entering really busy marketplaces, because the advice people often give is to really niche down and find something really small. The problem with that, though, is often the market's so small that you can't create a sustainable business out of it.
Yeah, you don't have the customers.
So, for instance, with our table tennis business, we are the biggest table tennis people. We are, the best-selling bats in the UK. We're quite big in the USA and all around Europe and Canada and places like that. But yeah, the business, it makes us good money, but it's not going to be. It doesn't have the potential for this gin business to be number 50 in gin. Would make us more money than being number 1 in table tennis. And the other problem with targeting a niche or trying to create a new market that doesn't exist is that you've got to convince your customers that you want it. Whereas for us, it's quite an easy sell once we tell someone we've got a gin for them to end up buying it. Interestingly, I've been speaking to someone else who started a vodka brand recently who's got kind of the opposite problems that we have. So our problem is differentiating from other gins, but once we talk to a customer, it's a very easy sell for them to buy it. This person started a vodka brand where he's created a vodka that you can just mix with tap water or any type of water and drink. It's like a healthy alternative, but there's a market that doesn't really exist. So he's finding it quite difficult to sell to bars or to get customers to buy it online or whatever. So he's got to educate his customer base that that's what they want. But he is finding it quite easy to get into distributors and places like that because it's new, it's unusual, it's unique. Alright, enough of gin. Let me move quickly on to another area where I've tried to use this thinking, and that is blogging. So blogging in general is quite a saturated marketplace. There's a lot of people blogging. And the other thing to think about with blogging is that not everyone can blog successfully. You need, each blogger needs thousands of readers in order to make it a profitable business. So the size of the market isn't that big.
And also, not many bloggers know how to make their blog profitable.
There's that too, and there's loads of things to it. One, it's very easy to start, which means it's very easy to quit. People don't know that much about it. But one of the other problems with, I think, some of the advice that's given out there. So the expert advice is to find a niche that you're an expert at and write about that. Which is kind of the opposite approach to what I took. The niches that I was interested in at the time was stuff like passive income and early retirement. And there's both for them have got really big players already in the marketplace. You've got people like Pat Flynn at Smart Passive Income and Tim Ferriss, got Mr. Money Mustache on the early retirement stuff. All of which I can't really compete with because they're better than me at it. And now they're much more established. But an angle that I did have that no one else could do was writing about me, writing about the businesses that I'm starting, documenting my processes. Instead of saying I'm an expert at this and trying to talk about it, I spoke about whatever business or project I'm currently working on, which gave me a unique selling point that other people didn't have, and then also let me write about loads of different niches that perhaps weren't that linked, that I wouldn't have been able to write about if I just focused on one thing to begin with, and then led to me stumbling into a few niches where I was the only one competing that actually people wanted to read about. So I became pretty much the first person in the UK to write about Amazon FBA. I got a lot of traffic out of that, kind of randomly, not something I really targeted, but it's just something I was working on for myself, and so I was writing about. Right place, right time. Right place, right time. But it's always, so if you listen to one of my previous episodes on serendipity, this is kind of serendipity. I was positioning myself so that I could end up getting lucky about these random things. I've written about hundreds of things. Most of them don't really go anywhere, but a few of them end up becoming a little bit popular. And this wouldn't have worked if you'd just created a blog around one niche. Exactly. Another one was match betting. I became one of the first people to write about that openly. It used to be a very secretive community. And now I'm starting to get a lot of traffic about starting alcohol brands. I had a guest post about starting a vodka brand, and I've written on my post about starting gin brands. And there isn't really that much out there on that, and people are searching for it. So yeah, I've ended up blogging, but in niches where I don't really have much competition, which is good because I'm not a particularly good writer. The design of my website isn't particularly good, and I'm quite bad at the follow-up. I don't send many emails out. I don't write that many posts. I don't do too much editing, and I don't do much marketing to try and get it out. I kind of rely on people stumbling across it. So there we go. Well, I think there's one other thing with your blog that people really like, is that it's your personality that's coming across. I think they're starting to get to know you, and you do that by talking about
things that have gone well in your businesses, but also the things that haven't gone so well. And I think that's a bit of an unusual style, and people really like that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that is kind of the unique thing that anyone can do when writing their own blog.
Absolutely.
Is if they write about themselves,
yeah.
no one else can write about them. So that does create that unique angle. So there we go. This is something I think about quite a lot. Don't be afraid to enter a saturated marketplace, but always look for something that you could add to it yourself that adds uniqueness, something that your competitors can't really compete with. Or something, it doesn't need to be something they can never compete with, but something that will probably take them a little time to catch up with. You often hear people saying, I want to start the Uber of something, or
yes.
The Uber of pizza delivery. Well, that's kind of what they're doing there. They're saying, I'm going to take this saturated marketplace, pizza delivery, and approach it from a slightly different angle. This kind of Uber, crowdsourcing, gig economy type stuff.
Yeah, because you're going to have a massive audience that want pizza delivered.
Yeah, you've already got the audience. You're just approaching it from a slightly different angle that the other pizza people won't be able to compete with. Now, don't go away from this thinking, what is the Uber of whatever I can start? That's not the way, because everyone's doing that. Don't limit your thinking to that, but take this kind of idea of different angles, looking for unique approaches to things, and not being afraid of those saturated markets to help inspire your thinking and help you compete.
And don't be as scared to appeal to a mass market.
Yeah, definitely. Alright, well that was a slightly shorter episode, just something that I think about quite a bit, and hopefully you found interesting. As always, if there's any feedback you want to give to the podcast, I think we've basically got the studio set up now. There'll probably be some more sound dampening stuff added later, which hopefully make the quality of the audio a bit better. But in terms of the volume and the setup with me and Emma having a little discussion over these things, this is probably it. So please let me know what you think about it. You can find me at sampriestley.com or email me at hello@sampriestley.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.